says find the value of the number d such that the point d, comma, negative d over 2 lies on the line containing the points negative 4, 5, and 3, negative 9. So, this is going to represent a point on the line, probably other than these 2 points I have in front of me. Okay, because I can clearly see that, my x coordinate for these is not the opposite of half of it for the y coordinate. If I do, a reciprocal, if I do half of negative 4 and then negate it, I don't get 5. If I do, you know, half of 3 and then negate that, I'm not going to get negative 9. So we're looking for a point that has this format, but lies on the line that contains those 2 points. So there's a lot of work that has to go onto this because that's just giving us a particular format, but I do want to figure out what d and negative d over 2 is. So here's how I went about doing it. First, I determined what the slope of my line should be. I use the points that I do know. So and make sure you always keep your x's and y's separate from each other. As you can see here, negative 9 and 5 were my 2 y coordinates. I'll have students that'll subtract a y and an x, a y and an x, and not get the right slope. Remember, it's the difference of y's over the difference of x's in the same relative order. So if I do 5 minus negative 9, I got to do negative 4 minus 3 in that order. And if I do, I get that the slope was negative 2. In point slope form, I'm gonna pick one of these 2 points. It doesn't matter if I had picked the 3, negative 9. It really just doesn't matter. I'm gonna get the equation in point slope form. So I have y minus 5 equals negative 2 x plus 4. And now what I'm gonna do, d comma negative d over 2 is another x and y coordinate that I'm gonna have on this line. So I'm going to let that replace the x and the y respectively in these 2. And that gives me an equation that has d in it that I can actually solve. So if I substitute d for the x coordinate and negative d over 2 for the y coordinate, I get negative d over 2 minus 5 equals negative 2 times the quantity d plus 4. I distribute the negative 2 on the right. I don't like having that fraction there, so I chose to multiply both sides by 2 just to get rid of the fraction and work with like non-fractions, at least for the time being. So I get negative d minus 10 equals negative 4d minus 16. I added 4d to both sides as well as added 10 to both sides to get 3d equals negative 6. I want all my d's on one side, all my constants on the other. And then if I solve that equation, I get d equals negative 2. That means that the point I was looking for, if I want to know the actual point, would be negative 2, 1, would be the coordinate that has that format and also lies on the same line as those 2 points. They didn't ask us to find the actual coordinates. They just want us to find d, which is actually one of the 2 coordinates, but you get the idea.